Morts, and this is going to be my Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 3 thank you review. You know, he was just supposed to be delivering pizzas. So this episode opens, and it's basically going on at the exact same time as the last episode when the wolves attacked Alexandria. So we're seeing kind of what's happening with Rick and the gang trying to come up with a plan C or D or whatever the hell letter they're on the alphabet to get the walking zombie horde away from Alexandria, the ones who broke off from the original horde due to the horn that we now know was caused by the wolves. So it first opens with more of the kind of transformation of Rick, where another Alexandrian gets killed and he basically just looks down and grabs the shit off of him that he needs to survive, like you would in any survival mode, I suppose. And that kind of leaves Heath and the rest of the Alexandrian group just like, you know, what the fuck? You didn't even acknowledge this guy just died here. You just, you know, took his knife. That's the reality. That's the theme that's been going on with this group of Alexandrians, is that they have been living in a safe zone. They have not been out there in the world. But we have a scene where we see Heath over here and Rick saying to Michonne and Glenn, you know, look, everybody's not going to make it back. Try to get them back, but if you see something happening, just keep going. You got to get home. Heath overhears that and takes it like, you know, hey, he's just wanting to kill us all and leave us behind. So he's got a problem with Rick that Michonne addresses later in the show. In this episode, there was a lot of death, which should be expected from a zombie apocalypse show, but there was a lot of Alexandrians, a lot of secondary characters that died. Definitely a lot darker episode than usual, if you can even say that for The Walking Dead. We see the guy who's with Michonne's group who gets bitten in the back and they kill the zombie. He realizes what that means. He knows he's going to have to, you know, get back home and say goodbye to his wife and basically shoot himself in the head. That's got to be a pretty damn gloomy moment to know that, hey, I'm going to try to get back just to say goodbye to my wife and family. So we get to Nicholas and Glenn and his group, and he gets to a town that they're trying to head off the zombie horde. Apparently this is a town that he knows about, that he's worked in before the apocalypse happened. There's groups of walkers in about every which direction, and there's also the big horde coming, and they end up taking refuge for a short period of time in a pet store to bandage up some people, because you had that one asshole who just started shooting off guns, ended up shooting one of his own people, and then just took off, bastard. But then speaking of that guy, we see Rick running, and he comes up on that guy who took off. I believe that was him, and he sees 3 walkers that are eating him. So he got caught anyway after tucking tail and running. Rick comes up on, kills the walkers. He sticks his knife in the first walker's head and breaks the blade off. The second walker comes up and he pushes him off and kills him, but he hurt his hand. Now a lot of people were speculating did Rick get bitten because they showed his hand bleeding, him kind of cringing and squeezing it. I went back and double checked, and he did not actually get bitten. There was a knife sticking out of the back of the second zombie. And when Rick went to push him off, he actually cut his hand on that blade. So that's where the injury came from his hand. So Rick did not get bitten. However, I think they did that as kind of an Easter egg or a shout out to the comics, because I believe in the comics Rick's already lost a hand. Now what's really interesting in this scene, I don't know if a lot of people caught this, was that this was when Glenn was back in the pet store. He had radioed Rick right before he had to kill those walkers, and he basically said, here's our plan, here's our situation, and he called Rick a dumbass. Now if you think back to season 1 when Rick was in Atlanta and Rick got trapped in that tank, it was a seemingly impossible situation for him to get out of, and Glenn had called him a dumbass over the radio in that situation. So that led me to believe that something bad was going to happen, or at least another impossible situation to escape from. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not sure a lot of people caught that as far as the reference to the Atlanta season 1 episode. Back in the pet store, they bandaged up a few people, and Heath and Michonne have it out a little bit. Michonne was explaining to him why Rick said that. These people don't know what the hell's going on. They've never been out in the world. And Michonne says something to the effect of, have you ever been out there, had to do this and had to do that, and it had so much blood on you that you don't know if it was your blood or your friends or walker blood or whatever. And that makes Heath take pause and think about that for a minute. And then later on when they do escape, he takes a moment to reflect, literally, as they came across this stream. He looks into the stream and sees blood all over his face, and it makes him think about what Michonne said. So to me, that was kind of a rite of passage, so to speak, for Heath to become a main character. He is a character in the comics. That basically made him a survivor to kind of fit in with the main group. So then we have Glenn and Nicholas, who went off on their own to burn a building to try to create another distraction for the walker horde coming their way. On their way to this building they wanted to burn, they come across a walker trapped under a car who Nicholas recognizes as one of his old co-workers. So this was back when he had left him to die, so he decides he needs to be the one to put him out of his misery and drive a knife in his skull. Glenn's like, go ahead and do it. And this kind of continues with Nicholas this season about his little redemption path since he was such an asshole last season, and Glenn should have killed him then, I think. But anyway, it kind of continued this story arc about his redemption and this whole thank you thing, which leads to obviously the most talked about scene last night that broke the internet, which was Glenn's apparent death. So Glenn and Nick basically get trapped in an alleyway with walkers in all directions. The horde had caught up to the little town. There were walkers on both sides of the fence. They couldn't really jump the fence and do any good. They get trapped in an alleyway right next to this dumpster. We had seen earlier in the episode where Nick keeps kind of zoning out or blacking out or whatever you want to call it. Sure enough, they get on top of this dumpster. They're out of ammunition basically except for one bullet apparently, but then they climb on top of the dumpster. He zones out again. He looks over. Glenn's trying to kind of shake him out of it because they're still trying to escape, and he looks over and says thank you and blows his fucking brains out. And we see his blood splatter on Glenn's face as he shoots himself in the fucking head. So he was basically saying thank you for, helping me out and helping me realize what's important in life, blah, blah, blah. But fuck it, I'm taking my own life. We can't get out of this one. Then the ensuing shot, that makes him fall, and it makes Glenn fall, and they fall into the walker horde below. There look to be about 150 or more walkers around them. We see Glenn screaming and crying as we see, blood and guts being ripped out. But there is a little hope. The camera basically was up on Glenn's head, but you could see that was Nick's shirt there where they were pulling the guts out and things like that. I just don't see him squeezing his way out of this one. Although the reference to Atlanta may have been something to do with that, where now he's in an impossible situation, but somehow gets saved or survives. I really just don't see it happening. I mean, we don't know for sure, but there is some hope. So, first of all, the body was his on top of Glenn, so that will, at least temporarily, for a few seconds or maybe a minute, at the most, protect him, except for I don't think his hands and legs will be protected because they're still underneath this guy and there's zombies all around him kneeling down. They got to be chewing on his ankles and wrist and everything else. I don't see him getting out of this one, but we did have the producers last night say that we will see more of Glenn. Glenn has been seen filming more episodes, scenes with characters that have not even been introduced yet, so we will see more of Glenn in some way, shape, or form, whether that be flashbacks. But the producer did say there will be more of Glenn to at least close the story, so we don't really know what that means. Also, on The Talking Dead last night, they didn't do the traditional RIP Glenn obituary things. Perhaps he could slide under that dumpster. Perhaps the wolves run up and distract him, or somebody else gets there. But it's definitely not going to be Rick. On one hand, I would love to see Glenn survive this, but on the other hand, just based off, the scene itself and the surroundings and the logistics of the whole damn thing, I just don't see Glenn escaping from this one. And then we go over to Rick. So his plan was to take the RV over to another road from the previous planning and the map he had seen to meet up with the horde heading towards Alexandria. And at this point, they're hearing gunfire from, obviously, badass Ninja Carol taking out all the wolves. And Rick stops there, and of course, he cuts the damn thing off. But then, of course, he gets attacked by 2 wolves. And these are the bastards that Morgan let out and let live, which goes back to the point of last week's episode about Morgan and Carol having this dispute about you got to kill people, and Morgan's like, no, you got to let them live. Rick ends up killing them, and then he sees 3 more sneaking up. Being Darth Rick now, he just takes his AK-47 and shoots through the damn side of the thing and blasts them all and says, fuck them. Don't even give him time to explain. Don't even give him time to attack him. So the closing shot was Rick being surrounded again, like back in Atlanta with the tank, being surrounded in the RV. It looked like they kept going around the RV, headed towards Alexandria. We don't really know if Rick's going to be trapped in there, if they even know he's in there. Although you would think they heard the noise from him trying to crank the vehicle right before they got there. Anyway, I thought this was a great episode as far as storylines, as far as, cinematography, character development for people like Keith. But at the same time, this was kind of sad for somebody like Glenn, who we all love, as one of the main characters, but they can't all live forever. That's my question for you guys. Do you think Glenn has a chance of survival here? Is he going to be able to squirm his way out of this one? Or could somebody come by and perhaps save him by distracting the horde that's now eating Nick? Or is he just a goner? And we're going to see, Walker Glenn at some point. Got a lot more videos coming, including another Game of Thrones Q&A video that I'll be working on next. And in the meantime, you can click here for the last video I did on Star Wars Episode 7 and the rumors that Kylo Ren may be Luke Skywalker, and I kind of addressed that there. You can also click here for the last video I did on the last Force Awakens trailer, where I break it down and kind of tell you what I think is going on there. So check those out. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to get everything. Thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you next time.